Ever since you can remember, you felt something in your chest telling you to move, to love, to speak, to try. Day after day, you pretend you don't hear it calling, or maybe you dismiss it as silliness or worse. But it's there, ready for you, and it will wait for you as long as you need. My name is Johnny G, and I invite you to join me on a journey of awakening as we dare to embrace our light. This is Refractive. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Refractive. I'm your host, Johnny G. Before we get into the content today, I want to welcome Italy, one of the latest countries that our podcast has been able to chart in. There's a little bubble of listeners in Milan that seems to have tipped the scales to get us on the charts there. Thank you for tuning in. It took 4 seasons to get Italy on the charts, but I'm glad that you're here, and I'm delighted that the refractive message is resonating in a new place. To all listeners, thank you for getting us to this 4th season. It's crazy if I think about 4 years ago starting this bad boy up, like that we would even last this long. But if you think Refractive could be of service to others, please consider subscribing, sharing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. Each of these 4 things really does expand its visibility and in the search result algorithms. Also, if you have any suggestions on content or feedback, just email me at refractivepodcast@gmail.com. Today's guest is Jennifer Standish. She is a personal transformation expert and the founder of Give Yourself Permission, which helps women overcome limiting attitudes that prevent them from achieving career success and finding happiness in life. She's the author of Permission Granted, Live Your Life Full of Joy and Peace. This is a book that gives practical advice on how to create an amazing life, regardless of what has happened to you in the past. For today's episode, Jennifer is going to talk to us about a really incredible experience she's had. Since this podcast is all about living authentically and spiritually, I know her story is going to resonate with a lot of you. I know it's going to touch a lot of you. And so what happened is, in April of 2020, Jennifer experienced a direct revelation that divinely guided her to uproot her life, let go of her physical belongings, and dedicate herself to serving and healing others. You know, that's our jam. So she describes that this revelation she experienced was like tapping into pure consciousness, and she experienced hovering over Los Angeles with her creator side by side, lovingly observing the people below. She compares it to what we've come to think of in our culture as a near-death experience. And today, because of what she experienced back in 2020, her life is dramatically different. She moved to Los Angeles, where she lives her mission of helping others release and heal from pain, trauma, and attachment. Welcome, Jennifer, and I'm so happy to have you with us today.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you have such an incredible story. I want to make sure, did I get anything wrong about that introduction?
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. All right, perfect. So let's just get to the nitty-gritty, because I want to know what the heck happened, what this experience was like, and what was going on in your life that led to this type of life-changing moment.
Yes. So the August prior, I had tried to commit suicide, and I was in a really difficult spot. I was running 3 or 4 businesses. I was financially under a lot of stress, and one night, I just went to bed, and somewhere along the line, God showed up and said, I want you to sell everything that you owned. And I was living in the Hudson Valley. And so picture this. I'm in the Hudson Valley. I live in a cabin right on the Hudson River, about an hour north of New York City. Yeah. I have redesigned my home so that the upstairs is an Airbnb. I am a sales consultant. I'd started a business called Prospecting Works, where I was teaching people how to cold call and helping them overcome call reluctance, which ended up being a deep dive into their childhoods. I was a wood turner, and I had been wood turning for 10 years, and I was selling Wood turning, I was working with a lathe, and I had a line of kitchenware that I was selling all over the world. Right. So I was a working artist, production turner, had an Airbnb, and then I had a sales consulting company, and then I was teaching Etsy classes because I was selling on Etsy at the local. Right. So I was hustling,
Yes.
and I was scraping by, and so I had like 4 gigs that I was juggling, and um, and I was doing it, but I had been doing it for years, and the level of anxiety and stress was just overwhelming. And but one night in April, I'm asleep, and I will say God showed up in my sleep and said, Jennifer, I want you to sell everything that you own. The house, which was, I owned a couple acres of land overlooking the Hudson River. I mean, it was this beautiful cabin. I had a huge workshop, wood shop. I had a sailboat. I mean, people would show up to this, this home, which was an Airbnb, 5-star rating for 3 years, and people would say, you're living my dream. Like,
Yeah.
this is, I mean, it was, a wraparound deck with a pergola, wisteria. I mean, it had deer that slept overnight. You'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and there would be deer sound asleep on my yard. It was just idyllic. And it was like, and I had lived there for 16 years, and I had friends, and it was like, sell everything you own, move to Los Angeles where you will heal people with your undivided attention. And it was pure, and I'd experienced pure consciousness. And we went to Los Angeles, where we hovered over people walking on the street in Los Angeles. And I had lived in Los Angeles 30 years prior because I went to college out here. And I was like, okay. And I felt completely safe, and I didn't question the request. And I said, okay, sure, this is what I'll do. And then we ended up back in my house, and I then woke up and started looking at things and was like, okay, well, we'll sell this, and we'll sell this, and we'll sell this. And then then I did what anyone would do when God comes and visits them and says, I want you to do this. I promptly called every single person I know, and I
Yeah.
told them this story, and I said, well, what would you do? Because it's like, it wasn't enough that God just showed up and said, I want you to do this. It was like I needed to call 100 people and go, well, what would you do?
Well, of course, because what if you're crazy? What if you're just hallucinating, right? I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you got to bounce off your crew.
It was just such a ridiculous thing, because at the time, in pure consciousness, and it was like, well, when when it was said, and God wasn't male or female, it was just God, where you will heal people with your undivided attention. At the time, I didn't think to ask questions like, well, what does that mean, God?
Right.
But then when I returned to my body, and I'm like, am I a professional listener? What is it? So I'm like typing on, like, professional listening, is that a career? It turns out there are people who are professional listeners, and I'm like, I guess I'll be a professional listener.
There you
So
go.
I'm calling all my friends, all of my business associates, even my clients. I'm calling, well, what would you do? Well, what would you do? Well, what would you do? And they're like, well, Jen, we believe that you believe this happened to you. And so if something like that did happen, and everybody said, go. Everyone said, go, right?
Wow.
They're like, if this truly happened to me, first of all, why are you calling everyone? Like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, I would go. But I had a dear friend who was also an intuitive healer, and she said, no, let the dust settle. Figure out what healing with undivided attention really means, because you are walking away from a lot. And what are you going to do when you show up? You're going to have to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
Figure it out in your home here, where you have your businesses, where you have your friends, and it was the best advice, because what ended up happening was COVID.
Mhm.
And I was blessed in that I survived COVID really well, and my house ended up. I ended up. It took me 2 years to figure out what I believe healing with undivided attention was. And what happened was my work with people who had call reluctance, their lives, when we did the deep dive into what was preventing them, what was terrifying them of picking up the phone, it was a deep dive into their childhood, and then their lives would, once we uncovered what that fear was, their life trajectories completely changed.
This
And
if I can jump in, you mean you would be hired to help people who felt insecure in selling by phone,
yes,
getting over that insecurity, and what you learned was that it was previous life experiences that caused that, and you were able to
yes.
help them work through it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. So call reluctance is very complicated with sales. With salespeople who have call reluctance, who have the fear of picking up the phone and either selling, not really selling over the phone, but scheduling appointments over the phone. Call reluctance is actually very complicated. There's 12 different types of call reluctance, and it goes back to deep childhood stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Because we're taught as children, don't annoy people, don't interrupt people, don't be a pest. All of those things are cold callers,
Yeah. Yeah.
or a cold, right? So what I realized was when I was working with people that I was doing more than just sales coaching, it was transformational coaching. And I
Okay.
was changing the trajectory of people's lives. And I was like, oh, that's the path I'm supposed to be on. I don't need to teach people how to cold call. I'm a transformational coach. This is what I should be doing in Los Angeles. And it took me 2 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
And it also helped. I had to get, we had to get through COVID. And what ended up happening was when I sold my home for more money than I could have imagined, all cash, to the
Yeah.
perfect buyer who the husband was a woodworker, so he loved the shop. All cash. They didn't really inspect the house because the house was hand built. I mean, it was just they took care of. They assumed responsibility for the feral cat colony that I had taken care of for 15 years. I mean, it was just like the universe, just everything aligned
Yeah.
perfectly, and it was like, thank God I didn't move immediately. Thank God.
Mhm.
So, but that's what I did was I then sold everything I owned, every tool, every piece of clothing. I only took heirlooms with me, and I went and I pretty much almost gave everything away, because selling your possessions in a month is kind of hard. But I really just gave everything away, pretty much gave everything away. And I was the two things I was most concerned about was my prized wood that I had been collecting for 16 years, and who was going to take care of the feral cats. Everything else I could have cared less about.
Yeah.
Once those two things were taken care of, I was fine. And I ended up, just the house ended up empty, and I drove down to my best friend's home in South Carolina, spent a couple weeks with them, and then I drove across country. It took me 6 weeks, and I ended up spending a week in the desert just south of the Grand Canyon in a really fancy mobile home park, another Airbnb, where I really wanted and expected to have all of these indigenous souls come and visit me and tell me exactly what was going to happen when I arrived in LA.
Uh-huh.
Because I was like, well, because God sent me here to do this. So I sat outside in my truck almost every night waiting for these indigenous souls to come tell me what to do. And they didn't arrive.
Yeah.
So, so, so I then started looking for volunteer opportunities and apartments and all that sort of stuff. And one night I was meditating, and I got this very, very, very clear signal. This very clear message was, no, stop, enjoy your trip. We'll figure this out for you. Just enjoy your trip. We will find, the universe, we will find you the perfect apartment. We
Yes.
will take care of everything. But you can solve this if you want, because overachievers are really good at solving things. And this has been my problem all along in life is you can solve every problem that comes your way. But if you would just stop and let us, the universe, the guy, or your guys, all of, if you would let us solve your problems, you would be so much better off.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just stop achieving, give
Mm.
us space, give us time.
Mhm.
We'll do a better job, but you need closure so much. So I just had to sit back and go, fine, you figure it out. I'm just going to enjoy this trip. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I arrived and spent 3 weeks on the beach. I had an Airbnb right on Santa Monica because I thought I wanted to live on the beach. Turned out I didn't. Ended up in Los Feliz in a wonderful apartment and could not be happier. And so now I've been here 4 months, and it is, my life is slowly, coming together. But it was this, but it's so far just been this amazing experience of letting go of who I was, becoming the person who I am, having faith in why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do. And it's really, it's like new level, new devil. When you step into a bigger place and to be a bigger person and a bigger life, everything that you thought that you have addressed just kind of comes back.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
So the money fears are back. Like all of these little things that I thought I had contended with. Well, I had in a smaller life, but now that this is a bigger life in a bigger way. And that was one of the realizations as I was driving across country was I really have to address this fear of money
Mhm.
and the holding on to it. And so because that has been, and I think it's true with a lot of people is we hoard money. We don't keep it in circulation.
Right.
And there's a great book out there called it's not my money. I think that's what it's called. And it's like
Mhm.
we're supposed to receive it and then put it back in circulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm definitely not a spender. And so I've had to look back at like every financial decision that I've been asked to make. I have to make it from my heart and be conscious of it and not let the amygdala hijack the
That's
decision
right. That's right. Yes.
and not come from a place of fear. And for somebody who grew up with so much trauma and then had a nervous breakdown and then spent most of my adult life suicidally depressed, I don't feel and I don't listen to my heart. And so I go on autopilot. And so it's very hard for me to connect to my heart and make decisions from that place.
Hmm.
And so it's been a real challenge of just staying present.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but but what an amazing experience this has been and continues to be, and I just feel um so grateful.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder? It sounds like from the way you explained it that you didn't deal with a lot of doubts. But do you ever wonder if what you experienced was a delusion, and that you would wake up one day and be
No,
like, "I was delusional. It was just."
no, no, there was such a sense of urgency
Hmm.
of I need to do this,
Okay.
and there was no critical thought that came in um was this delusional, what none. And for 2 years that sense of urgency never waned.
Okay.
And it was I stand fully in my power and strength, and I know that was a divine experience. And when I tell people, I say there are no words in the English language that can truly describe what that experience was like, but I'll do my best. And I just came back from a conference where I heard a woman who had a near death experience, and she did this incredible healing. Greg Bruce Lipton was speaking at the event. And so anyway, when she was describing her near-death experience, I sat there and was like, and my friend was with me, and I was like, that is my experience. And she too said, there are no words to accurately describe what I am about to tell you, but I will do my best.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just turned to my friend Sheila and I was like, Sheila, I, this is, I say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
going through her experience, I was like, this is it. This is my experience, except she had friends and people who had passed with her. I had God. And I'll tell you, it was God. It wasn't Mother Earth. It wasn't universe. It wasn't a guide. It was very clearly,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pure consciousness. It
Yeah.
was without, and there was no fear. There was no questioning. It was, and it was completely safe and complete mobility. You could go anywhere, and I could hear things and I could see things. You can't feel things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was invisible, but there was no body. But there was no doubt. There's no doubt that it was a divine experience.
Yeah.
Yet I find it so funny how I really needed confirmation from every other human being that I knew.
Of course. No, I understand. I get that. I reference it on the podcast every once in a while. Because it was really the launch of this whole chapter of my life. But um I had always wanted to go into the military,
Mm.
but I was a gay kid and there was don't ask, don't tell. And, high school was really dark and really difficult for me. I went to an all boys high school in the suburbs, in the South, and in the 90s, and it was just not safe. And, um, and then when I got into, I had always struggled with my weight as a kid. And then when I got back into my 30s, I went into morbid obesity. I was 425. And so the military it had never felt like a good option for me. And as I was beating my head against the wall, trying to get out of a 16-year HR career that no longer felt like it fit, I didn't know what to do because this was my first job out of college and I wasn't qualified to do anything else and make serious money. And so I decided that the military was going to be my way out. I had lost 200 pounds. I was no longer worried about the ramifications of being gay. Like I felt very confident and strong in that to hold my own. And I was like, okay, it's the first time in my life where I feel like I could actually go join the military. And this is going to be my way out. This is going to be, I'm going to go become an intelligence officer. Then I'm going to pivot, I'll get my master's, and then I'm going to pivot into a civilian intelligence agency. I live in DC. There's like, a dozen civilian intelligence agencies, and like that's going to be my way out of HR. Well, what happened was I went to the recruiter. I went through about half of the steps. I found, people in the Pentagon who would vouch for me. I literally was like on this quest, and I started binge eating again. And the recruiter was like, listen, buddy, like, if you want to move forward with this, we can. But if you show up at this weight to officer candidate school, which is like boot camp for officers, you're going to have an ugly little asterisk next to your name. You're not going to enjoy the experience. They will lose the weight for you. So, can you lose this on your own? And I said, yes, let's pause. I'll lose the 20 pounds. And then, but the more I tried, the more weight I gained, the more binging I was doing. And month after month, my weight crept up and up and up. And I had already left my career. I had already resigned from my HR director role. I was ready for the military, and I just couldn't move forward. I got re-recruited into HR, and I banged my head against the wall for a year and a half, trying to lose the weight and having my weight continue to go up, all the way up to 325 pounds again. And
Wow.
the thing was that, you know, I had like this series of really incredible experiences that kept pivoting me further and further away from what I thought I was going to do. And eventually it led to me being cracked open and me seeing the world in a different way. Like you, I didn't have this kind of that same out of body type experience as you did, but I had like just this knowingness that one day it was like, no, 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 you never need to struggle to figure out what you're going to do for a living again. You never need to clamp and scrape and clench and grab. And you never need to be the architect of your future again. Just catch the wind like a kite and you'll go where you need to go. And I quit my HR career again, not knowing what to do, and sat down with a notebook and was like, what feels right? I would like to speak. That's what I want to do. And to this day, ever since, starting the podcast and all of that years ago, to this day, I wake up and it's like, what feels right today? And sometimes what feels right is to say no to a contract or a client. Sometimes what feels right is to not publish a podcast episode for a month. Sometimes what feels right is to go live in France for 3 months, which I did this past summer. It's just like, can I just catch the wind and go where the universe, the creator, wherever, where I'm taken? And through these years, no longer do I, well, I'm too old to join the military now, but no longer do I have any illusions about any of that kind of stuff. I don't worry about the future. I don't worry about money. I don't worry about that. And I have had the most extravagant, ridiculous lifestyle since I have stopped trying to be the architect.
Yeah.
And it feels crazy. Jennifer, I asked you if you kind of felt delusional about it because I have had these pivot points where I'm sobbing on the sofa saying, I'm going to snap out of this one day and I will have destroyed my financial security. I will have walked away from all of my relationships. I will have become that weird, crazy, eccentric person. I will not have a career. I will not have professional credibility. I will literally be a bum, like with nothing. And it's in those moments where I felt that, like, what if this is all just delusion? That the next day I would just get lifted back up and
Yeah.
and the clarity would return.
Yeah.
So I love
Yes. Well, even though I know that as long as I stay on this path, I'll be taken care of, just like you. Um, and I've had this feeling since I was a child, that I was destined for something great, and which is part of what made my childhood and my 20s, 30s, and 40s so difficult, was because I knew I was destined for something great, but everything that I was getting, especially being raised by a narcissist who said I was dumb, would never go to college, would
Yeah,
always need adult supervision.
yeah,
And here I was believing that I was destined for something great, and how this it was just this conflict within me. There are moments where I sit on the couch and I do wonder, there's nobody signed up for my workshop and I've just invested all of this money. Oh my
right.
God.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Right. So even though even though God told me exactly what he wants me to do and I'm doing it, it doesn't mean that that there aren't those moments or those days where there's weakness. And but it but thank God that somehow we have people in our lives, or we can kind of like right the boat, because I feel exactly the same way as you do. Like, I'm going to be fine, and I don't
Yeah.
worry about money most days. And I do know that as long as I stay here, because I do believe I'm a light worker. I do believe I'm here on a mission. I do believe I'm here to help women, pull them from the dark into the light, which is why it's so hard for me when people say, well, you've got a niche down. You've got it. Like, well, what is it exactly that you want? And I'm like, I am here to help women find peace and joy. And they're like, well, what exactly does that mean? And I'm like, it's, I do know, and you're a light worker too. And we both want to speak, and we both want to get in front of, I mean, there's nothing that I feel more passionate about is give me a room full of people,
Yes. Yes.
and I want to stand on stage, because I know my book is 91 rules that I was taught by a narcissist that sabotaged my adult life and caused me to have a nervous breakdown when I was 23. I
Yeah.
didn't even get that far out of college, and it had completely shut down my life. And the book is very funny. I've come there's nothing sad about it. It's like, it's hysterical, because some of these rules, because narcissists can be really funny. um and but my entire life was sabotaged, adult life was sabotaged. And so my goal is, let's come out together, and let's look at what you were taught what are the rules that you were told that you had to live your life by, and
Yeah.
let's get rid of them and rewrite your own rules that are loving and supportive and encouraging, and that will let you live a bigger life, because that's the life that you were intended to. And let's connect with your heart, and because I haven't been connected to my heart, and let's all do this together,
Yeah.
and lift each other up, because when we're all on our path, we are all, as a community, so much stronger. I mean, imagine a country where we aren't also worried about retirement.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
I mean, what would our lives be like if we weren't all worried about, am I going to have enough money to retire?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We would all be doing what we loved, and
Yes.
what we loved we're really good at, right? I mean,
Exactly.
what a beautiful place to be. So yes, that's, and for each of us is different, but that's my goal, is let's help other people find what their soul's purpose is, and they're
Yes.
going to be magnificent at it. I live in Los Feliz. There's a lot of homeless people in Los Angeles, and my talk is hot mess to healer, and I really believe that there's a lot of healers in the homeless community out here.
Yes. I do
and
too.
and if there's a way to just find one of them, help them put their lives back together again, and then put them back out there and say, it's your job to find one more, right? And help that one person. And then there's two of you, and then go back. And so, I just did a podcast the other day about suicide. And what would you tell people who are on the verge of committing suicide? And I would just say, maybe you're a hot mess because you're really a healer.
Yeah.
And it's your job to heal, to then go and help other people heal.
That's right.
And so just give us a stage,
Yeah.
give us people who we can help
That's right.
heal, because we've got something to say. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Where is this going? I don't know.
It doesn't matter. We follow the flow. That's right. We
Yeah.
catch the wind, right? We catch
Yeah, we catch the wind.
that's it,
Yes, we catch the wind and we stay with it.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
I really love what you're saying about the stage, and I wonder if others, some of the listeners can relate. There is something that happens when you are speaking to a group of people, and you can see the click happen
Yes.
person by person, and it's like a bag of popcorn. It's like one click, and then it's a long time, and then there's another click, and then it's like click 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 click, right? And like all of a sudden the energy of the group is feeding you.
Yeah.
You feed the energy of the group, and it just is this amazing, beautiful cycle of like love, like from the stage to the group to the stage to the group, and like everyone is vibrating. Everyone
Yeah.
is just,
Yeah.
everyone is glowing, you know.
Yeah.
It's this idea of like uniting together in love and service and truth and spirit and soul power, and it's amazing, and it has the ability to alter lives. It really does.
It does. I was meditating and I envisioned myself on stage, and the applause stopped, and I just said, "Thank you for seeing me."
Mhm.
And I said to the group, and I know this is going to happen somewhere, it's going to happen where there are going to be people in the audience that want to be seen too. And I'm going to invite them on the stage and say, I want you all to clap just as enthusiastically for me. I want you all to, one by one, as these people come out, I want you to see them too. And I want you to clap, because I want these people to feel as seen as I did when you come out, because that is going to transform these people's lives.
That's
And
right.
have these people come out. They don't have to perform. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. They just get an opportunity to walk out on stage individually and be seen in front of hundreds, thousands of people, and be applauded a standing ovation just for the courage of coming out and standing in front of all of these thousands of people
Yes.
and
Yes.
being seen. And that is so healing. And I just want to give people that opportunity to be seen
Yeah,
in
that's
that
right.
way.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
In our culture, being seen can be radical.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, if the listeners want to learn more about you, Jennifer, and not only your amazing story, but how you show up in the world and help people, how you exercise this gift of healing with others, what do you recommend they do to learn more?
Sure. God bless the websites. It's not done. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn, and it's
Okay.
Jennifer Standish. Just look for Jennifer Standish. You'll find me. You can also email me. The email is super easy. It's just jennifer@jennifer-standish.com. But LinkedIn right now is a place where I call my home. I post there regularly. My contact information is there. My phone number is even there. You can always reach out as a former cold calling consultant. I take every single call that comes my way. So you can always call me. I'm on Instagram as Give Yourself Permission. You can find me there. I post there regularly. I'm on Facebook as Jennifer Standish. The website is coming, I promise, but LinkedIn, like I said, is the best place. And I'm always posting about workshops, because I do them regularly. I love to do workshops and things like that. But that's the best place, is LinkedIn.
That's
Thank you
excellent.
so much.
Yeah, of course. And it's Jennifer with a J and two N's for those of you who are listening, and Standish, Standish, Jennifer Standish. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for you to join us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Everyone, I appreciate you tuning in again. And as always, as you go out into a sometimes hectic and chaotic world, remember to aim your light. Take care. You've been listening to Refractive Podcast, and this is Johnny G. If you found today's content uplifting, if you think it might make somebody's day better, give it a share on social media, click like, subscribe. All those things help to expand this podcast's availability to new audiences. I'm a speaker, a coach, and a facilitator based out of Washington, D.C., but I travel a lot. If you think I can be of service to you or to your organization, help people get unstuck or move into their authentic power, shoot me an email. My email address is refractivepodcast@gmail.com. Take care. Thanks for listening, and aim your light.